Morning. Happy to call this meeting of the Board of State and Community Corrections to order, and welcome to everyone. We have a number of exciting things that are going to happen today, but before we do that, I want to do, as always at these meetings, a little bit of a technical update. This is a hybrid meeting that we're doing today. Supervisor Chavez, who's had a rather busy week, is joining us remotely via Zoom. I assume you've given her all her orders on how to chime in and participate. She's in San Jose. Have we posted at her location? So we've done all the right things.
Yes. We have.
Hey, good to hear, good to hear. And just a little off subject, congratulations. Sounds like you had a very good week. With all that said, just so everybody knows, she was in a race for the San Jose mayor, and she was a front runner, and goes on now for the next leg of this journey in November, correct?
That's correct. Thank you.
Very happy for you. We also have some other individuals who are in races this week, but we'll talk about that in just a minute. But good to have you, and thank you for participating remotely.
Thank you.
Those of you in the boardroom, and you've heard this warning before, if you're not talking, please ensure that your microphones are on or not on. I mean, they're so sensitive that we've experienced people just typing on their keyboard and it coming through loud and clear for those of us in the public via Zoom. So please be cognizant of that. We're happy to remind you. And I know we have enough staff sitting around that you'll get a tap on your shoulder that will tell you not to leave your microphone on. We're going to, as always, call for public comment in this room and also virtually. So be patient as we move through those moments. Adam is going to do what he does best. And that's okay. So who was that? Okay, so we muted him. Okay, thank you. He's going to give instructions to the public and how to participate remotely. We have a big agenda today, so I'm going to ask Adam to take over and do his part.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good morning, everyone, and welcome. I will give brief instructions for this meeting. Aside from meeting in person, we are also using the Zoom webinar platform. We will support public participation during this meeting. If you are connecting by phone, please be sure to mute your microphones or phone by dialing *6 to mute and unmute. When you are called upon to speak, please eliminate background noise before unmuting your microphone. If we missed you, please send a written comment to publiccomment@bscc.ca.gov. The email is available on our website as well. Board Member Chavez on Zoom, if you wish to make a comment on any of the agenda items, please use the raise hand feature on Zoom or physically raise your hand so we can see you. For board members in the boardroom, please state your name before you make your comment so those participating remotely may know who is speaking. Members of the public, we will give the members of the public the opportunity to comment after the presentation of each agenda item and prior to the board voting on an item. Agenda item 6 is the opportunity for any member of the public to make a comment on any agenda item or other comments in general. You will have 2 minutes for your comment. Participants on Zoom who wish to make a public comment, again, please email publiccomment@bscc.ca.gov with your name and the agenda item you'd like to comment on. You can also use the raise hand feature on your Zoom application. If you are calling by phone, dial *9 to raise your hand. I will call out the phone number you dialed in with. Unmute your phone by dialing *6. We will lower your hand once your name is received. Please remember that we are monitoring your raised hands. As soon as we lower your hand, we have your name and you do not need to raise them again. We will get to you. Public participants in the boardroom, please complete the public comment card on the table by the entry door and provide them to me during the meeting. Public participants who wish to make a comment at the San Jose location, please provide your name to Board Member Chavez, and she will call out your name during public comment. Regarding voting, all agenda items that require a vote during this meeting will require a roll call vote, and I will call out each member's name at the end of each agenda item. As chair member stated, board members in the room, please turn off your microphones when you are not speaking. Remote member Chavez and the public on Zoom, please also mute yourselves when you are not speaking. As always, we thank you for your patience. Madam Chair, that concludes my instructions.
Thank you, Adam. Those are short and succinct. I'm sure you all followed those closely. We're here to help if you need a little refresher during the meeting. I'm really happy today that when you look into this board, you finally see us fully up and staffed. We have a new member present today representing the large county sheriffs in the state of California, appointed just recently by the governor. And I welcome Sheriff Shannon Dykes from San Bernardino County as a new board member. I have the pleasure of swearing him in today, and we've actually had a couple of opportunities to spend time together, and I'm so encouraged and excited about what he brings to us. He comes from a county that has over 2 million residents, and it's, I learned from he and Katie last night that it's the largest geographical county in the country. Pretty impressive. He had a big week this week also. He ran for election and prevailed. We're really happy that we have him here. His position is secure. He was appointed following his good friend and mentor, Sheriff McMahon, who left over a year ago.
Yes.
And so he's taken the reins. He's done everything in the department. We had a long conversation today. He knows about every area in the department and including budget and fiscal management. So he's well versed, and I think he will add a dimension to this board that we were missing without a large county sheriff. You're going to be able to make some comments after me. Notice I always go first, but what I'd like to do is do the formal swearing in now and ask you to stand. It's a really juxtapose that you're not swearing me in, you swear so many people in time after time in your current job. Raise your right hand, please. I state your name.
I, Shannon Dykes,
Do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support and defend
that I will support and defend
the Constitution of the United States
the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of California
and the Constitution of the State of California
against all enemies, foreign and domestic,
against all enemies, foreign and domestic,
that I will bear true faith and allegiance
that I will bear true faith and allegiance
to the Constitution of the United States
to the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of California.
and the Constitution of the State of California.
I take this obligation freely
I take this obligation freely
without any mental reservation
without any mental reservation
or purpose of evasion,
or purpose of evasion,
and that I will well and faithfully
that I will well and faithfully
discharge these duties
discharge these duties
upon which I am about to enter.
upon which I am about to enter.
Thank you, Sheriff, and congratulations. Does that make us posers?
Yes.
Okay, just checking.
Thank you. On three, California flag behind you.
Thank you. Katie's taken over the duties today of our comms person who's had a little bit of a medical emergency. So Katie, nice job. I'll let Tracy tell her that you did your best. Sheriff Dykes, if you wouldn't mind a few opening remarks before we start the business of the board.
Sure. Well, good morning, everybody. And I'm really honored to be here. I have been a fan of the BSCC for years. I was our jail chief during realignment, and I have a lot of background in this. I know we do amazing work, particularly with this board, and I'm very excited to be part of this and move us forward and certainly take on some of the challenging issues that I know are going to be before us as we move into the future. But again, thank you very much. And Linda, thank you.
Thank you.
I appreciate being here.
Thank you. Thank you. And great to have you. Actually, the Zoom meeting just left my iPad because apparently a phone came through. So if somebody from IT can help me out here. Another congratulatory news. We had a big week this week. The Senate has confirmed all of our board members that were in the confirmation process. That would be Chief Andy Mills, Chief Kirk Haynes, and wait, we have a third, oh, Cindy Chavez. Cindy, when you're out of the room, I just forget you immediately. You know, let's not worry about it. I'm just gonna put it away. We're very happy. That was a long process. It was a lot of hard work, and I appreciate everybody's commitment to us and to stay with us. Any of those of you who went through that process have anything you'd like to say? Being none, Supervisor Chavez, thank you for going through that. I know you didn't have much going on the last couple of weeks. We're going to now turn to our esteemed Executive Director of the BSCC, Kathleen Howard, for the chair's report.
Madam Chair, we need to take
Oh,
roll.
I do it every time, Adam. You should put it really bolder. It's only in 15 font right here in front of me. So apparently you want to take roll?
I should.
Well, let's do that. What a great idea.
Chair Penner,
Present?
Miss Allison,
Present.
Mr. Vera Rosa is absent today. Mr. Groudon. Here. Mr. Dykus.
Here.
Ms. Chavez,
Here.
Mr. Haynes,
Present.
Ms. Vernon,
Here.
Ms. Guard,
Here.
Mr. Mills,
I'm here.
Mr. Budnick is absent today. Mr. Garcia,
Present.
Ms. Kumpion.
Here.
Madam Chair, we have a quorum.
Thank you. Needing no further introduction, Katie?
Good morning, Madam Chair and members of the board. Katie Howard, the Executive Director here at the BSCC, and I am really happy, and I know Linda shares in this excitement in spite of her whatever else is going on today, with some really, really wonderful announcements about our executive team. I want to let you know about some new positions and roles and responsibilities that are going to be carried out or are being carried out, really, and beginning with Aaron McGuire. Our fantastic colleague. Aaron has been the general counsel here at the BSCC for 6 years. His new job title and duties are Chief Deputy Director and General Counsel, or as I like to say, CDD-GC. Aaron has been such an integral member of this team. He is brilliant. He helps us on so many different kinds of legal questions. Part of what's so great about working here is the level of commitment and care that people put into their jobs. Aaron's really been acting in a chief deputy director role for a long time, and now we've made it real and made it official. I'm going to announce a couple of other changes and then see if any of the affected people would like to say anything, which is of course welcome. So Aaron, chief deputy director and general counsel, our also fabulous colleague, Anita Butler, has been our admin chief for the last 3 years since she's been here. She's moving into basically a higher classification, carrying out those same duties. So Anita is now in what we call in state government, a CEA, a career executive assignment, as our admin chief. I am so grateful to Anita for all the work that she does, but I just have to highlight over the period of the pandemic shutdown, she and her team have been incredible in helping us immediately pivot to work from home and addressing and dealing with patients' care, intelligence, hundreds and hundreds of issues that have come up. So congratulations to Anita. The third change and promotion and wonderful, exciting news also connects to Yvonne Garner, our fantastic colleague. Many board members have known her for years. Yvonne's official retirement date is coming up in July. Yvonne held so many responsibilities here at the BSCC that we actually had to divide those up into 2 roles. So Yvonne had been over admin and had mentored Anita these past few years. Anita has now gone into the primary area of responsibility. And Yvonne's other hat and primary hat for many, many years was as the deputy director over standards and training for corrections, our training division. When Yvonne was basically running out some time on the books, the fabulous Suzanne Collins stepped in as our acting deputy director. And I really want to thank and acknowledge Suzanne Collins for her contribution. Suzanne, absolutely terrific. And one last drum roll, Colleen Curtin, who's been here at the BSCC, I believe for a total of 8 years. Is that right? Okay, so Colleen Curtin will now be the deputy director. I was going to say for all time, but that probably seems like a bit much to any of us in the STC division. Colleen came into our CPGP division and has handled some of our most complex grants. And then she's moved over to the STC division about 2 years ago and is now the deputy director there. Linda and I could not be happier about all of these changes. I'm really thrilled and pleased and look forward to working with my ongoing colleagues in their new roles. And if anybody wants to say anything, you're welcome to do so. And you don't have to.
Make me say something. I want to say thank you to Linda and Katie. It's really been a great honor to be here to work for you over the last several years. This has been just a fantastic place to work. I think the teams that Katie and Linda have assembled are just some of the best people I've had the pleasure to work with over the years. Working for this board has been, I see you, and so this is going to be a challenge. This is going to be tricky.
Watch,
Well,
watch what you say.
Now,
here.
Secretary Allison was technically never my boss. We were definitely colleagues, however, at a point in time. And of course, the best supervisor I've ever had is the Honorable Janet Garr. So just to make sure everyone's clear on where everyone lines up, I think I mostly covered everyone, and I have had the pleasure of, for the most part, working stealthily behind the scenes quite a bit for my career, providing advice and good work for attorneys generals and governors and secretaries and elected sheriffs, and I've really enjoyed my time doing all of those things, and I'm pleased to accept this role. I was looking at the job description, however, and it occurred to me, it seems like there's 3 jobs that I'm supposed to be doing now.
Yeah. You're kind of like the new.
Instead of just one. Yeah, okay. I just want to make sure I have that covered correctly.
Yeah,
No, and I'm appreciated, and I'm humbled and honored to be continuing to work in this capacity. Thank you.
We are delighted to have you, and it has just come to my mind that you apparently cannot keep a job. I mean, anybody that has 3 jobs sitting
That is
in
a problem.
tables, got some worries to think about, but no, you're something special, and we are so fortunate to have you. And as I look out in the audience at Anita's, Suzanne and Colleen, I'm struck by a couple of things. One is Suzanne couldn't get out of the temporary job fast enough, which I think says a lot about Katie and I. And to Anita and Colleen, sorry she didn't tell you about us. We're really, really excited to have you on board, take this job, be recognized, at least in job classification as you should be, because you're a big deal and you do a lot of heavy lifting for us, and we appreciate you very much. Anybody else? Anybody from the board? Anything? Okay. Janet Garr remains silent. Apparently, Erin, that's a good thing. Okay. All right. And we're moving now on. Katie, I think, as always, Katie's on a roll in her executive director report.
Thank you so much, Chair Penner. I'm going to give some very brief budget highlights and then turn to the update on the information that we collected at the board's request on mental health intake in large jails. But just a few notes on the state budget. As you're probably aware, the final negotiations on the final budget agreements are very much in progress. What's likely to happen is that there is a budget bill in print that reflects the preferences, the ideas of the legislature, of both houses in the legislature, the state Senate and Assembly. That bill will likely be up for a vote, but it's not the final deal. So negotiations are ongoing and will continue over the next few weeks. There are significant new grant responsibilities coming our way. I'm going to list off 7 grant titles. Some of these are continuations of grants that we already have. Most are new. And I'm not even mentioning the ongoing grants that get, larger allocations each month. And the work in our organization, particularly grant related, has just been at an explosive rate of growth. One of the ones that is obviously something we're watching very closely, and unsure what the final agreements will reflect as far as the process and structure of the grant, but there remains $100 million in the budget for county juvenile facilities as part of the implementation of DJJ realignment. In addition, there is a grant to address issues of organized retail theft. That's $85 million per year for the next 3 years. There's a one-time grant to address officer wellness issues at $40 million for the state. There's a gun buyback program also connected to the governor's package of proposals addressing crime in California. There's a $25 million gun buyback program. Some new issues came in during the May revise process as follows. There's a grant to address issues around missing and murdered Indigenous people. That grant is $4 million per year for the next 3 years. There's also a one-time grant of $3 million to address transitional housing needs for young people who are leaving DJJ. And then finally, there is a $20 million one-time increase to the adult reentry grant. And as Aaron was heard to say to Ricardo Goodridge, our deputy director in CPGP, start hiring. There's just so much work to be done and it's exciting. It's a bit overwhelming and we'll be back to the board at every single meeting, rolling these grants out to the field just as quickly as we can. Any questions about the budget items? Okay, great. If I could ask for the mental health screening survey to be put up and here, yeah. Casey, would you mind coming up here? I'll do the talking points, but I have a feeling there will be questions. I want to also acknowledge Casey Warmoth, our chief of research. Casey does such a fantastic job with the research team on so many different, this is one of those special assignments that came up at the last board meeting. And Casey, with all of her, just what she brings in, knowing how to collect information quickly, put it together so that it, I think makes a lot of sense for you. What the board asked at the April meeting when we were debriefing the state audit report on the San Diego jails and deaths in custody, there was a lot of attention in the audit report about mental health intake screening. And the board asked us to collect information from the large facilities about what their current mental health intake practices are. These materials are in your binder under the info tab 5 in your info items. And I hope that you'll be able to see the screen up here, but feel free to go through the binder pages if that's easier. So we put a survey out to the 14 counties that have adult detention facilities with rated capacities of 1,000 or more. So that accounts for 26 facilities in 14 different counties. We got a really, really good response rate. We heard back from 24 facilities in 13 counties, and just late yesterday afternoon, Casey received an initial response from Santa Clara County, which is the one you'll see that it's in a light gray. Oh, sorry, next slide, please, or next page, please. You'll see that Santa Clara is in the darker gray. All the counties listed had responded. We got part of a response from Santa Clara. Once Casey receives the full thing, we will update and repost this information. So what we learned in reviewing those responses is that of the 24 facilities, 8 of those do not do intake or booking at the facility. And so the first mental health screening is done somewhere else. For the remaining 16 facilities, the intake and booking is done. And those 16 facilities are going to be the focus of the next several pages. So next page, please. The 10 facilities out of the 16 that do intake do have licensed professionals available to conduct initial mental health screenings 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. We asked in the survey when the mental health screening is conducted and by whom. And on the survey instrument, respondents could check as many boxes as apply, so you'll see that they don't sum to 100%. What we did find is that all 10 facilities conduct the initial mental health screening during the intake and booking process. One facility also does that screening before the individual is accepted for intake and booking. 2 facilities conduct mental health screening before the individual is accepted and during a secondary medical screening. In terms of who conducts the initial mental health screening, all 10 facilities responded that it is conducted by a licensed professional, licensed medical professional. What that means is that in 70%, it's by a mental or behavioral health professional. In 50%, it's by a licensed medical provider such as an RN. And then 2 of the facilities also indicated by licensed mental behavioral health professionals. So they clicked both options. 3 facilities, and that's 30%, were the mental health screenings were conducted by trained, sworn correctional staff, and in each instance, the licensed professional option was also selected. And my colleague Allison Ganter reminded me the other day that what I've just summarized is in essence the best practice recommendation from a national organization on correctional health. And so it does seem like, generally speaking, in the vast majority of our large counties across the state, we're seeing pretty good best practice things going on. That was a lot of information. Are there any questions about that? That's kind of a big chunk of what we discovered in this survey. Okay, I'll move on then. Next page, please. This slide addresses the 6 facilities that's across 5 counties that don't have licensed medical professionals available 24/7 for the initial mental health screenings. So we asked about the number of hours per day on average that a licensed mental or behavioral health person is available on site, and more about when the mental health screenings were done. Again, the respondents could click multiple boxes. What we found was that the hours of availability is, let's see here, do we have the by? Well, I can give you an example. One of the large counties has indicated that for 8 hours per day, there's a mental or behavioral health person available on site. And the hours per day in these 5 counties ranged from 8 hours per day to 20 hours per day. And most facilities conduct the mental health screening during the intake and booking process, 83% of these. And then 2 facilities conduct that mental health screening before the person is accepted for intake and booking. At all 6 of these facilities, the intake screening is done by a licensed professional. Next slide, please. We also collected information about what options are used when a licensed person isn't available for the mental health screening at intake and booking. So we saw here that there were a lot of the options that you probably would have anticipated. 3 facilities, that's 50%, have health professionals available on call. So the telehealth that we're hearing more and more about these days. 1 facility has a licensed medical professional available during the intake and booking process, and 4% have telehealth access as well. So, and you know, some of these are clicking more than one option. My colleague Casey, who knows the data far better than I, is here if you have any follow-up questions. We wanted to just be sure that the board had the information that you had requested. We're not asking for you to take an action today, but we did want to respond to the questions that had come up of, in essence, what I think we heard from the board is we'd like to hear what's going on in the largest counties. And so happy to take any questions that you may have at this point.
Anything from the board? Yes.
Yes, I was one of the ones that asked for the follow-up.
Yes.
Thank you. I found this to be very helpful. Do we have the authority to have any follow-up conversation with them if they are not providing a licensed professional 24 hours a day, just to encourage them to do that and see whether or not there's anything that can be done?
We would only have the ability to inspect for compliance with the regulation. And Allison can jump up and say specifically what the regulation says. I believe that all of the kinds of examples shown here are consistent with the regulation. I don't think our regulation requires 24/7. Al?
Where am I looking? I'm so sorry. I'm not used to people and screens. Yeah, the regulation, sorry if I don't know it verbatim in my head, says that a licensed medical health professional or correctional personnel that is trained to complete the survey in that particular a particular survey can perform it as well. That is really consistent, or is consistent with national best practices. And what Katie's talking about is we can't encourage agencies to exceed the regulation. It becomes a concern with underground regulations. And I'll get you the entire regulation and the wording exactly.
Thank you.
Anything else?
I don't think so.
I see Supervisor Chavez has her hand up.
You. Sorry, didn't mean to startle you there. You know, one follow-up I have is, does the regulation anticipate the bandwidth of evaluation, meaning like what kinds of evaluation is being, what kinds of issues are being evaluated for?
There's more than one regulation dealing with screening and then what happens after screening. And it really is dependent on the county, their resources, and the type of instrument they're using. So I'd have to look at a couple of different regulations, and anybody please speak up in that regard. I don't know that I'm answering the question exactly.
Well, and let me just give you an example of something that we're beginning here in Santa Clara County. And that is that we're looking at fetal alcohol syndrome disorder and other traumatic brain injuries to do a better job of screening on the front end, and primarily for two reasons. One is that we want to make sure that when somebody's in our custodial care, that we're able to respond to their needs a little bit better, or not a little bit better, hopefully much better. But we recognize that there are some of these traumatic brain injuries or other impacts to the brain that we frankly don't really understand. And so we're really trying to begin the screening process. And what I was curious about is that something that, I mean, we opted in to do that. No one directed us to, but what we're discovering is that we have a relatively high rate of people who are in our custodial environment that have these sort of syndromes like fetal alcohol syndrome and traumatic brain injury.
Yeah, I guess a good response is that the regulation isn't inclusive of all potential issues that an agency would screen for. And so I don't have the regulation in front of me. It might say developmental disabilities or other behavioral health issues. And then the agency would work with the medical health provider to identify any specific situation. So it would be really difficult for the regulation to be inclusive of all potential issues that an agency would screen for. So I think it would be inclusive in maybe a subject of areas in which to screen for, if that helps. I know I'm not, I think it would be difficult to include every single issue in a regulation for an agency to screen for.
Thank you.
So I might just add at this juncture, we work really hard at this regulatory process, and we re-examine regulations on a biannual basis. As we do that, we also work very hard to promote best practices and to continue to have on our website areas where one might go and see what is accepted across the country. And we also like to highlight counties that are doing a great job on specific areas of interest to the board. This conversation grew out of the audit out of San Diego. I'm sure Katie stated that, and I just want to remind everybody that, there was concern of the board that we wanted to ensure that we at least had this standard going on in counties that had capacity to do that. So I'm understanding the mental health issues and issues that jails across the state face are a work in progress. I was very pleasantly surprised to see that they were doing this on this expanded basis that Katie just reported out on. I'm not sure that we have an action item at this point, but we can continue to promote the very best practices that we are discussing today on our website.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And thank you very much, Casey, for all the work that you put into this survey. Appreciate you being here as well. I wanted to give a quick highlight on all the work that is in process on our juvenile regulation revisions activities. I want to give a big shout out to Mr. Garcia and Chief Haynes, our co-chairs. And with their active involvement, we have built a roster for the entire Executive Steering Committee. It's a really terrific group. I believe the roster is available on our website. The Executive Steering Committee is diverse in every possible definition of that word, geographically, lived experience, professional experience, race, gender, sexual orientation. And we are really looking forward to that Executive Steering Committee coming together to do the important work of regs revisions. And to get ready for that, Allison and her team, and I just have to give a huge shout out to Allison Ganter, as well as Ginger Wolf, Lindsay too, and Amanda Ferreira. That's our regs revision team. They have been working day and night. I can definitely say day and night because we are collecting information that is all going to be put together for the executive steering committee about a variety of considerations and possibilities for regulation revision topics. We are conducting 4 public listening sessions. We had our 3rd this week, and there's one more to go. I believe it's next week. Lots and lots of information by subject matter area, and Allison and her team will be summarizing and distilling that information for the ESC. We will get input from probation chiefs and facility managers on their issues, concerns, ideas, and so forth. And we also, this wasn't quite ready for sharing in April, but I'm happy to let the board know that we have funded some mini grants out to community-based organizations so that they can hold input sessions for gathering information from impacted youth and their families about ideas for regs revisions. And those mini grants will result in some actual written summary reports that will go to the ESC. We are looking at late September or October of 2022 for the first in-person, well, I assume in person. At this point, the plan is in person, executive steering committee meeting. There's tons of information on our website about how to give input. And I would invite the co-chairs if they have any comments to add, and happy to take any questions from the board at this time.
Good morning, and thank you, Kathy, and I really appreciate the, again, the opportunity to work with Miguel. We've, really, I think, have formed a bond going through the process of establishing the ESC, and I appreciate the BSCC staff as we went through the process. But also I want to say thank you to community, to the public for their input during the listening sessions. They've been really valuable for me to hear perspectives from across the state and from different various places from where people come. So I just want to say continue to provide that input. It's very helpful for us as we move forward. But thank you so much.
Yes, I'll like to echo some of the similar comments Chief Haynes mentioned. Been an honor and privilege to work alongside him, creating the ESC. We put a lot of thought into creating a diverse representation of what California could be moving forward to, especially with the Department of Juvenile Justice closing, but also appreciate the community along with those that are serving the youth inside, the probation staff serving the youth inside the facilities, that for their input and knowing that it's duly noted and considered about what changes need to happen as we make these monumental changes in our state. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Miguel. Madam Chair, I'll turn to the COVID-19 update. If we could get those slides up, please. We always begin with the population trends and begin with the adult facilities. I can tell you this as our IT team is pulling up the beginning of this PowerPoint. We have been tracking the population in county jails across the state every week. And we always start with a look at what the overall statewide average daily population was going back to February of 2020, just prior to the pandemic shutdown. At that point, the statewide jail population was almost 73,000. It dropped to a low point of just over 50,000 in May of 2020. And then for many months, it has been relatively stable and has hovered around 59,000 in the recent weeks. Thank you, Sean. Now turning to the COVID data and the case trends in the county jails. As I'm sure everyone is aware, in the recent weeks, there absolutely have been some increases in the numbers of people confirmed positive. In the last 3 weeks, in particular, we have noticed an increase in positive cases as these data show. And just a reminder, I give it to you each and every time, because of the public health protocol that we cannot have a specific number when the case numbers are between 1 and 10. You'll see across the band the total number of confirmed positive cases with a band between 1 and 10 reflected for those counties that report small numbers. I hope that makes sense. We've been over it several times. So As you can see, obviously, the numbers are considerably down from those very high points at mid-January of this year, but they have increased in the recent weeks. Let's see, next slide, please. Turning to the positivity rate, similarly, the positivity rate has gone up a bit in the recent weeks. And again, it's hard to say exactly where in the band, but from what we understand, the positivity rate would be much closer to that lower part of the graph, so the 2.2 positivity rate. The hospitalizations, I would say, thankfully, have been looking very good. There have been no reported hospitalizations due to COVID since the end of March on our data collection. Counties have continued to do a really good job with regular data collection. Some have had some trouble keeping up with providing all of the information, but we really do have a good picture of the statewide data. The next slide will begin the updates on our county juvenile detention facilities. As you can see, the statewide average daily population has been fairly flat in the recent weeks, has increased a bit. So now statewide, the ADP across all of our counties is right around 2,300, or it's actually at 2,300. Next slide, please. There has been a big slowdown of the positivity since January, but a recent uptick for sure. And one county did report more than 10 cases, 10 positive cases in one instance. The next slide shows case trends and positivity rates, fairly similar to the numbers that we saw on the adult slides, although of course, because the population is so low in most juvenile detention facilities, there are a lot who can only report, fewer than 11. And we have had only one hospitalization from a juvenile detention facility over the entire time that we have been collecting data. And thankfully, no deaths from COVID have been reported out of the juvenile detention facilities. I'm happy to take any questions that you may have on the COVID data. That concludes my report, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Deputy Director, do you have a legal report?
I have no legal update, Madam Chair. I would note that, as I usually do at the beginning of our board meetings, we have several items involving the awarding or preparing of grants that the body will be considering. Please look at those items and look at the potential awards and indicate whether or not, before we take up those items, whether you would consider recusing from those. I do know that Board Member Kumpion will be recusing from all the grants today. So all items involving our grants, including, I would ask before we take up the consent calendar, that we would pull item B so that she can step out for that as well. And then I know Supervisor Chavez will be recusing from item E in advance as well. So if there's any others as we approach those items, just let us know. Thank you.
Thank you. Adam, a legislative update.
Thank you, Madam Chair. There are several bills that impact the BSCC, and most are in your reading materials under Info tab 4. Just as a reminder, the BSCC does not take a position on any bills, but we would like you to be aware that we are tracking these bills. I mentioned at our last meeting some of the bills, and I will give a brief status update of those of note. AB 2343 by Assembly Member Akila Weber would add 2 additional board members to our current 13-member board, a mental health care provider and a licensed healthcare provider. Additionally, the bill by July 1st, 2023 would require that the BSCC adopt standards of care for people with mental health issues. This bill has passed Assembly and is pending action in the Senate Public Safety Committee. SB 1137 by Pro Tem Senator Tony Atkins would expand the board's mission to include the promotion of legal and safe conditions for staff and people housed in local detention facilities. This bill has passed the Senate and is currently pending action by Assembly Appropriations. 2 policy bills that would establish new grant programs at the BSCC are also pending. AB 1836 by Assembly Member Manshine which would require the BSCC to administer the Peace Officer Mental Health Wellness Grant, and AB 2294 by Assembly Member Joan Sawyer is a grant on diversion of repeat retail theft to probation departments and superior courts. Finally, we have AB 2321, also by Assembly Member Joan Sawyer, would amend existing law regarding the use of room confinement in juvenile facilities. Among other things, it would require that youth are provided reasonable access to toilets at all hours, including during normal sleeping hours. August 31st is the last day for each house to pass bills, and September 30th is the last day for the governor to sign or veto any bills. I will bring you an update at our November board meeting about the final outcomes of the 2021-2022 legislative session. Madam Chair, that concludes my legislative update.
Thank you, Adam. We've covered a lot in the info items. Does any of the board members wish to add anything to the conversation at this juncture? Seeing none, I will now go to members of the public, and I would ask people in the room that wish to comment, have you provided Adam with a comment card? Adam, do we have any?
I do not have any for info items in this room.
Thank you. Supervisor Chavez, anyone in San Jose that wishes to make a comment on any of the info items? None. Turning to the public on Zoom. Adam, do you have any members of the public on Zoom?
I do not see any raised hands right now, and do you want to give it a minute, Madam Chair?
We can give it a few minutes, be great. Yes, we can.
Step out, please. Is that the way to do it? I'm sorry.
Yeah, we'll go ahead and do that. Unless Ms. Kumpion wishes to stay to vote on the minutes, or you can recuse on the minutes as well. I think we'll be okay.
Exciting.
Let the record reflect that it was Katie that kicked out Ms. Kumpion. Yeah.
Madam Chair, I'll close the queue
Thank you.
on the information items, and we have one member of the public that wish to make a public comment, and that would be Nancy Juarez on Zoom. Nancy, go ahead.
Hello, everyone. My name is Nancy Juarez. I use she, her pronouns, and I'm with the Center on Juvenile Criminal Justice based in San Francisco. I wanted to comment on that survey that was put out to that Katie Howard just gave a summary on. And I guess this is a bit of a question. Did that survey also try to see, as well as with screening, if facilities had a suicide prevention program? Because Regulation 1030 here says the facility shall have a comprehensive written suicide prevention program developed by the facility administrator in conjunction with the health authority and mental health director to identify, monitor, and provide treatment to those inmates who present a suicide risk. There's more under that regulation, but that serves as a good summary. And so I just wanted to ask if in the survey, if in addition to checking if facilities were doing screening, if you found that facilities also had a suicide prevention program in place.
Thank you, Ms. Juarez. And if I could just, if you'll indulge me a little technical comment, I want to thank the IT team. The audio for our public participation is terrific. So it's really helpful, Nancy, that we can hear you so clearly. We appreciate your question. The scope of the survey did not extend beyond asking the large detention facilities how they conduct mental health screening at intake. Of course, each and every time we conduct an inspection in any facility, we review compliance with all of the regulations. So at that point, that's where a review of the suicide prevention regulation and policies would be conducted by our inspection team. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Adam.
That concludes.
We're moving now to consent items, and I would ask if there's any members of the board that would like to pull any items from the consent agenda. Seeing none, any members of the public? None in this room. Asking now in San Jose.
And
We're going to do sign language in San Jose. That's perfect. We're seeing a no. And on Zoom, are there any members?
None, Madam Chair.
Okay, thank you. So we have item A and B. Aaron, is it, if it's okay if we take those together, let the record reflect that Norma Kupion has left the room as she has recused herself from item B. I'm looking now for a motion and a second on the consent agenda.
I would like
make-
to motion.
A
I'll
motion?
second.
Second, we have a motion and a second. Adam, would you like to take the roll?
Chair Penner,
Aye.
Ms. Allison,
Aye.
Mr. Groudon,
Aye.
Mr. Dykes,
Aye.
Ms. Chavez,
Yes.
Mr. Haynes,
Aye.
Ms. Vernon,
Aye.
Ms. Guard,
Aye.
Mr. Mills,
Aye.
Mr. Garcia,
Aye.
Ms. Kumpion recused. Madam Chair, the motion carries for agenda item A and B.
And we can invite Ms. Kumpion back into the room. So Ms. Kumpion's going to attend very little of this meeting. She could probably get a little snacky right now. Okay, we're moving now to the action item discussion, item C. And as we await, come forward, there you are. As we await Katrina's presentation, let me mention to those on Zoom, in the room and in San Jose, if you wish to make public comments, please be prepared. We will limit those to 2 minutes. Those of you in the room, provide Adam with a comment card if you wish to speak. Welcome.
Thank you.
How are you?
I'm good, thank you. How are you?
Good, good.
Just waiting for my PowerPoint.
PowerPoint. One moment, please.
Good.
There it is.
Good morning, Madam Chair and board members. I am Katrina Jackson, Aid Field Representative with Corrections Planning and Grant Programs Division. I am here to present Agenda Item C. Agenda Item C requests funding approval for the California Violence Intervention and Prevention Grant, also known as CalVIP. Oh. Sorry about that. The CalVIP request for proposal was developed and released around the one-time augmentation of $200 million and the $9 million in ongoing funding totaling $227 million for the next 3 fiscal years. Staff requests that the board approve awards using funding from fiscal year 21-22, 22-23, and 23-24 to fund the maximum number of applicants. All successful applicants must provide a 100% cash or in-kind match to support and enhance activities funded by the grant. In addition, all successful city applicants must pass through a minimum of 50% of grant funds received to one or more community-based organization. And the city of Los Angeles is eligible to receive up to $2 million per fiscal year on a non-competitive basis. Assembly Bill 1603, also known as Breaking the Cycle of Violence Act, was signed by the governor in 2019. AB 1603 limited the eligibility to cities in California that are disproportionately impacted by violence and the community-based organizations that serve them. It also expanded the type of organization that are eligible to count towards a city's 50% pass-through, which are community-based organizations and public agencies or departments other than law enforcement that are primarily dedicated to safety or violence prevention. On July 15th of 2021, the board appointed board member Chief Mills as the ESC chair, and on November 18th, the board approved the release of the CalVIP RFP with proposals due on February 11th of 2022. A total of 118 proposals were received, requesting $212 million in funding. After the initial tech review, 83 proposals in 3 categories, cities, community-based organizations, and small scope community-based organizations, moved forward by rating by the Executive Steering Committee, which included 15 cities, 53 community-based organizations, and 15 small scope community-based organizations, requesting approximately $160 million of the $209 million available in funding. Once the ESC completed the rating process, research staff compiled their scores and placed applicants in a rank order for funding. 79 proposals are recommended for funding, which include 15 cities, 50 community-based organizations, and 14 small scope community organizations. In addition to the recommended funding from the ranked list, staff recommends that the board approve an award to the City of Los Angeles in the amount of $4 million. The grant period will begin on July 1st of 2022 and end December 31st of 2025. The CalVIP award will fund a variety of projects from street outreach, hospital-based violence intervention programs, intensive case management, and cognitive behavioral therapy. I would like to thank all of the members of the CalVIP Executive Steering Committee with a special thank you to Board Member Chief Mills for serving as chair. Thank you for your leadership, your support, and your commitment. I will close by recommending that the board take the following action. Allocate the fiscal year 21-22, 22-23, and 23-24 appropriations. Fund 15 city proposals, 50 community-based organization proposals, and 14 small scope community-based organization proposals, and fund the City of Los Angeles for a $4 million non-competitive grant. This concludes staff presentation, Madam Chair. Are there any questions?
Thank you, Katrina. Great presentation and a good news story, honestly, as we roll out this many grants across the state in all shapes, sizes, and forms, funding both law enforcement agencies and community-based organizations. So I'd look to the board if there's any questions, comments. Before we go to the public, I really need to extend gratitude to Chief Mills for taking this on. I know that he's got plenty to do in his own jurisdiction, and there were a lot of proposals to be read and evaluated here. So thank you so much for doing that for us.
Well, thank you, Chair Pender. If I can just comment real quickly, the amount of work that BSCC staff puts into this is truly remarkable. Both Katrina Jackson and Elise Ram have just really put together a program that makes it easier for those sitting on the executive steering committee to manage the workload with constant reminders and a lot of help along the way. So I really appreciate that from your staff. And at a time when violence is surging across the nation, California is leading the way in terms of getting money to communities. And it's a community-centric focus. And I think that just speaks volumes about what we're doing as a state. So
Thank you.
I appreciate the opportunity.
I appreciate your remarks. And Katrina, we know that you and Elise work very hard on these projects. They're enormous. And you always make it look very simple when you stand up and present. So I appreciate you and all that you have done. Chief Mills, I also appreciate your remarks because as we have new members come on the board, we will be inviting them to participate in the executive steering committee process. And so
The word
when-
invite
when-
is a big word.
Yeah, well, inviting can be used in many terms. Inviting. So I do appreciate that. I know invitations take all shapes and forms. We really appreciate your positive reaction to all the work we've asked you to do. Now going out into the city of San Jose, seeing if you have any questions or comments from any public there. Seeing none, moving to the Zoom.
Madam Chair, we have one member in Zoom who wished to make a public comment, and that would be Gabriel Garcia.
Thank you, Adam. Please close the queue. Go ahead, Gabriel.
Thank you, members. My name is Gabriel Garcia. I'm the Policy and Advocacy Director for Youth Alive, and just wanted to call in and say that we are incredibly grateful to be awarded funding through the CalVIP program in order to serve our community in Oakland. As the chief had mentioned, violence is spiking, and our work to try to bring community violence intervention programs to the scale that we need in our city at a time of rising violent crime, this funding is very much needed. Since we applied for funding, levels of violence have remained high, and as we all know, inflation has been rising too at a rapid rate. We're not the only ones caught in a crunch of trying to ensure that our most crucial program component, our frontline workers, is able to sustain themselves and their families under this pressure. With the unallocated CalVIP dollars, we would respectfully request that you all consider a cost of living adjustment to the awarded grants of 8.3% in line with the federal inflation rate through May, as provided by the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics. Thank you so much for your consideration and again, all of the hard work that went into evaluating all these wonderful applications.
Thank you. I think we have two more in the queue, Adam.
Yes, we have two more in the queue and one in the room. We have Ann Marks on Zoom.
Are you there, Ann? Let's go to number 2 and then we'll come back to Ann.
We have CJ Babb.
Hey y'all, my name is CJ Babb and I'm representing the 3 Big Brothers Big Sisters agencies being recommended for funding. I'm a member of the board of directors of Big Brothers Big Sisters Bay Area, and I'm a big myself. I just want to say thank you to California BSCC and the committees involved in assessing projects and making these recommendations. We appreciate being recommended for funding, and we know that our evidence-based one-to-one mentoring model is a key prevention strategy for interrupting cycles of violence in communities disproportionately impacted by violence. As a mentor to a young person in our program with an incarcerated parent, I've experienced firsthand how one-on-one mentorship adds immense value to the lives of young people in communities grappling with crime rates. My little brother Alejandro has struggled significantly with the absence of a parent and to incarceration. As his mentor, I've made a point to be present over the last 8 years to help him through his feelings of isolation, grief, and frustration in a healthy way rather than burying them, and to advocate for his mental health. Not only will BSCC funds provide many more mentors like myself, but my hope is also that as mentorship grows throughout California, we can also increase culturally competent mental health services for children like Alejandro in our programs. Again, thank you on behalf of Big Brothers Big Sisters.
Thank you.
And one in the room, that would be Alicia.
Good morning.
Good morning.
My name is Alicia Barrage, and I am the founder and executive director of Rising Stars Business Academy. And I'm here with my husband, who is the co-founder of Rising Stars. So we did make that drive from Moreno Valley to come up here to say thank you. We appreciate, it's an honor that we have been recommended for funding. So when we saw the CalVIP grant come out, we said, this is just a perfect opportunity for us to apply because we've been around since 2010 is when we opened up Rising Stars. 2011, we incorporated an intervention prevention program, and we've had that program ever since 2011. So now if we are awarded, then we will be able to enhance and especially go out more into the community, not just within our organization, but more in with the community. So we will be able to enhance what we do. So thank you so much. And I wanted to say thank you. Oh, she's not, oh, there you go. Katrina, she's been wonderful. She can now put a face with who's been emailing her back and forth. Like, oh, who is this person?
Yeah.
So thank you so much. You have been a tremendous help and we appreciate you. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you for making the drive.
Madam Chair, we now have 2 more in the room.
Well, we welcome them.
We have Cornelius Johnson.
Hello.
Good morning, Madam Chair, distinguished board members. On behalf of the city of Antioch, I want to express our deepest gratitude for having an opportunity to participate in this process. This is the first time we have had apply for these funds. They were definitely in desperate need to have them. So again, thank you tremendously. We'll go a long way with our citizens in Antioch. Thank you.
Thank you.
And lastly, we have Tasha Johnson.
Hi, good morning. I'm Tasha Johnson. Johnson is pretty common, so no relation to Cornelius Johnson. However, he is the city manager and my boss. So I am Tasha Johnson. I'm the Youth Services Network Manager with the city of Antioch. And this is a new role that has been established for about a year and a half. And to receive these funds and be recommended for them is just really exciting for me, both professionally and personally. Working with the youth, working with young adults, and working with families in our communities. The need is there. The work is being done currently, but with these resources and this belief in our community, we are going to make a tremendous impact and keep pushing quality of life forward and belief in our community members, with our communities, and for our community. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you for making the drive to the Johnsons, although they're not family. All right. Katrina continues to hold the floor, but we need to go back to the board. Any questions or comments?
Yes, I would
Miguel?
just like to make a comment to Chief Mills. Thank you for leading this and just seeing the wealth of investment towards violence prevention is really amazing. And especially hearing the investment in Moreno Valley. I grew up in Moreno Valley. I stayed some time in Pittsburgh and seeing the Antioch, close city next to it as well too. So just seeing the investment into the communities to address again violent prevention at a time where it's really high and scary for a lot of young people, families. It just shows that the commitment our state has for our community. So I just really want to echo that. I also really am interested to hear more about that potential recommendation from Gabriel of an 8% increase to some of these organizations, as again, we're tackling so much as a country, as a state. I think it would be worth considering. But again, just what's presented right here is it just shows a testament to our values as a board, but also our commitment to our citizens in California. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else from the board?
Yeah, Madam Chair, just to mirror Miguel's comments and Katrina and Chief Mills, I'm familiar with a number of these groups, a large number as I reviewed all of our packets. And you really captured the essence of those folks that have true hearts and really trying to make a difference in our communities, because I am familiar with those groups, and your outcomes and your review you did is really spot on just from what I've been able to review. So thank you, all of you.
You. Okay. I'm looking now. Oh, council, did you want to say something?
I have a technical thing I'd want to note before we get to the motion, Madam Chair.
Okay.
So in the, I believe Katrina mentioned $4 million to Los Angeles. The board report reflects $6 million to Los Angeles. The total amount of money that is going to go to Los Angeles is $6 million, but it's spread over 2 different cohorts. This is primarily awards being made in this most recent cohort number 4. Just want to make that sort of,
Okay.
make sure that was clarified.
I thought it did note 6 million. Okay. So those of us who weren't paying attention to what you were saying, but looking might have come away with 6. I appreciate you, Katrina, for your patience.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, council. I'm now looking for a motion in a second, please.
I'll make a motion that we approve staff's recommendation on item C.
Thank you.
I'll second.
Motion in a second. Adam, will you take the roll?
Chair Penner,
Aye.
Miss Allison,
Aye.
Mr. Groudon,
Aye.
Mr. Dykes,
Aye.
Ms. Chavez,
Yes.
Mr. Haynes,
Aye.
Ms. Vernon,
Aye.
Ms. Guard,
Aye.
Mr. Mills,
Aye.
Mr. Garcia,
Aye.
Ms. Kumpion recused. Madam Chair, the motion carries for agenda item C.
Thank you. And still with us is Katrina. After all those accolades, I thought you might go have a coffee. We're really glad to have you. Would you proceed with item D?
Yes, as you know, I am Katrina Jackson. uh, Still.
Not related to the
I'm
Johnsons.
Not related to the Johnsons, but I will be working with them. I am still a field representative in the Corrections Planning and Grant Programs Division. I am now here to present agenda item D. This agenda item requests board approval to re-release the request for proposal or RFP for the California Violence Intervention and Prevention Grant, also known as CalVIP. As you know, the state of California invested over $209 million in funding for competitive grants to the CalVIP grant program, and the board just approved agenda item C, which awarded approximately $156 million in funding to 79 grantees, leaving approximately $53 million still available for competitive grants. The board approved the release of the original RFP on November 18th, and staff request approval to release the modified RFP found in attachment 1. Within the modified RFP, eligible applicants include California cities and the community-based organizations that serve them, with the exception of the city of Los Angeles and the 79 cities and community-based organizations that received funding in agenda item C. The 53 million is distributed across 3 funding categories, which includes over 25 million for both cities disproportionately impacted by violence and the community-based organizations that serve them, for a total of approximately $51 million, and approximately 2.5 million for the small scope CBOs that serve the residents of cities disproportionately impacted by violence. The maximum grant amount for cities and community-based organizations is 6 million and up to 400,000 for small scope CBOs. Prospective applicants will have 5 weeks to complete and submit their proposals with a due date of July 15th of 2022. And to better prepare potential applicants, BSCC will hold a virtual bidders conference on June 24th of 2022. A scoring panel will be convened to read, rate, and develop funding recommendations starting in late July and continuing through early August. The scoring panel's funding recommendations will be presented to the board at its September board meeting. And the grant period will begin on October 1st of 2022 and end on June 30th of 2025. There will be an additional 6 months designated for completion of the final evaluation report and the financial audit, which will be due to the BSCC on December 31st of 2025. One modification that I would like to note is under the evaluation section. BSCC has the ability to conduct the internal statewide evaluation and does not intend to contract with an outside evaluator for this round of funding. Therefore, that section of the RFP was removed. I will close by recommending that the board approve the re-release of the CalVIP request for proposal. Are there any questions?
Any questions from the board? Seeing none. Any questions or comments from San Jose? Seeing none there. Moving to the Zoom.
At this time, I do not have public comment.
Do we have any questions or comments in the room?
I do not have public comment for this.
Seeing none, I'm back to the board looking for a motion and a second.
Motion
Kathleen?
to approve.
I second.
Motion and a second. Adam, please take the roll.
Chair Penner,
Aye.
Miss Allison,
Aye.
Mr. Groudon,
Aye.
Mr. Dykes,
Aye.
Ms. Chavez,
Yes, sorry.
Mr. Haynes,
Aye.
Ms. Vernon,
Aye.
Ms. Guard,
Aye.
Mr. Mills,
Aye.
Mr. Garcia,
Aye.
Ms. Kumpion recused. Madam Chair, the motion carries for agenda item D.
Thank you, Adam. I see Tim approaching. Thank you, Katrina. Tim will be doing item E.
Madam Chair, before we go to item E, I'm going to have to recuse myself from item E.
Then I'd politely like you to leave.
This is Cindy and I'm recusing also.
Okay.
And I believe the sheriffs are also eligible if they choose to recuse.
Yeah, this particular grant is, county eligible. Although I don't think we've ever had sheriffs apply for this particular
noticed-
grant,
I noticed the sheriffs are leaving quickly, so.
but they're leaving.
They
I'm
are.
not gonna stop them.
I'm not sure it's not something you said, counsel.
Oh. Yes, sorry, board member Kumpion. Still out. Yeah.
Nice. Don't go too far. Thank you. Okay, Tim, you've cleared the room.
Thank you. Did my best. Good morning, Madam Chair and members of the board. I am Timothy Plosick, Field Representative in the Division of Corrections Planning and Grant Programs. Today I'm presenting agenda item E, extension of the Title II grant agreements covering December 1, 2019 to November 30th, 2022, and approval of the new Title II request for proposals for January 1, 2023 to March 31, 2026. This agenda item is a two-part request asking the board approval to modify the current Title II grant agreements with no-cost grant term extensions and to release the new Title II request for proposals for the next cohort as recommended by the Title II Executive Steering Committee. The request for proposals, the State Advisory Committee on Juvenile Justice and Delinquency Prevention, or SACJEB, their roster and the Executive Steering Committee roster are included in your materials. On June 10th, 2021, the board authorized SACJEB Chair Rachel Rios to convene an ESC to oversee the development of the Title II request for proposals. The ESC met on March 16th and 17th of 2022 The RFP was then discussed by the SACJAB membership on May 26, 2022, and is now before the board for approval. If approved, the Title II RFP will fund 6 program purpose areas: aftercare and reentry, alternatives to detention, community-based programs and services, diversion, mentoring, counseling, and training programs, and job training programs. Applicants must choose at least one of the program purpose areas for their proposal. Key components of the RFP are that it is anticipated that $4 million annually will be available through though the 2021 and 2022 funding are not yet known. The maximum proposal request is $350,000 annually. Eligible applicants are government agencies, including agencies or departments within a city, county, or a school district, nonprofit, non-governmental organizations, and federally recognized Indian tribes in California. The target population for the Title II grant program is people under the age of 26 who are at risk and/or have been under the jurisdiction of the juvenile justice system. Government agencies and Indian tribes are required to pass through a minimum of 70% of the grant funding to at least one direct service provider. A direct service provider must be a non-governmental organization. An Indian tribe can satisfy this pass-through requirement if the Indian tribe provides the direct services. At least one proposal in each of the 6 program purpose areas from applicants that meet the minimum scoring threshold will be funded. Priority will be given to the highest scoring eligible small county applicant that meets the minimum threshold score. The categorization of an organization as small is based on the population of the county where the applicant is located, as established by the California Department of Finance. The highest scoring proposal that meets the minimum scoring threshold submitted by a California tribal applicant or applicant lead agency partnering with the tribe will be funded. With approval, the RFP will be released on June 10th. Proposals will be due back to BSCC by August 12th, 2022. Funding recommendations will be presented to the board on November 17th, 2022. The anticipated project start date is January 1, 2023. The second part of this agenda item is a request for no-cost extensions for current grantees. As a result of COVID, existing grantees have struggled to fully implement programs and deliver services. Offering no-cost 4-month grant term extensions would increase the likelihood that Title II programming can be delivered as originally intended. Also, currently funded programs are eligible to apply for this Title II RFP. If a current grantee is awarded funding, a 1-month no-cost grant term extension would allow them to continue programming without a gap from the end of the current cycle of November 30th, 2022 through the start of the next cycle of January 1, 2023. Any remaining funds at the conclusion of the extensions will be added to the next grant cycle. For this agenda item, staff recommends the board take the following actions. Approve the release of the Title II RFP as recommended by the Title II ESC. Approve a no-cost 4-month grant term extension for current grantees not funded in the next funding cycle. Approve a no-cost 1-month extension, grant term extension for grantees funded in the next cycle, and approve that any remaining funds at the completion of the no-cost extensions would be added to the next grant cycle. Madam Chair, this concludes my report.
Thank you, Tim. Any questions or comments from the board? Miguel.
So this was my second time being part of the process of creating the Title II grant. I would say in the midst of a pandemic, we did confront some challenges, but we also discovered our own innovation to serve the community. And I really appreciate how in trying to identify the 6 program purpose areas, we contracted with community-based organizations where they surveyed their youth. And it's now somewhat of a model to the juvenile Title 15 and 24 regs that was mentioned earlier. So being part of this process the second time, and it's been awesome. So I just really want to thank Tim for his guidance on this. And yeah, it makes me know that I know about Title II even more. So thank you for the BSCC staff for leading on this. And
You're welcome. Thank you. Anything else? Adam, I'm looking to well, I guess we won't call on San Jose right now because we've recused Supervisor Chavez. Now going to the Zoom.
At this time, we have no one on Zoom who wish to make a public comment.
Thank you. And to the boardroom.
No one on in the boardroom.
Thank you. Back to the board, looking for a motion in a second.
I'll make a motion since
Thank
there's
you.
only a couple of us left.
Right. I was just going to ask Aaron about that.
And Kathleen Allison to second it.
So we're solid here, council?
Yeah, motion of those present. So we need 6.
Okay. We have a motion and a second. Adam, please take the roll.
Chair Penner,
Aye.
Miss Allison,
Aye.
Mr. Groudon recused, Mr. Dykus recused, Ms. Chavez recused, Mr. Haynes recused, Ms. Vernon,
Aye.
Ms. Guard,
Aye.
Mr. Mills,
Aye.
Mr. Garcia,
Aye.
Ms. Kumpion recused. Madam Chair, the motion carries. For
Thank you,
agenda
Adam.
item E.
Can we, thank you, Tim. Can we invite the many recused members back?
Okay, I'm just making sure I'm cool.
For the record, I'm going to take a quick 5-minute break, and I really mean 5 minutes for anybody that has. Thank you. Thank you. Because I think you're going to.
Voting now? Yeah. So they have permission to talk then. They just have to hit the button. They're on their phones, but there's no. Yeah, just themselves.
And I'm driving back to Fresno on Saturday. No, I know. But I committed to this. I should be in South Florida, get it over. No, I just. Yes, they're on like, right? Yes, so we have them on the line. We're going to go ahead and get started. Thank you for adhering to my 5 minutes and 7 minutes.
Correct. Yeah.
Well, they're on the line. Yeah. Okay. All right, we're moving now to item F. And we're going to discuss the reinspection of Los Angeles Juvenile Hall. And we have 3 people on this item, Allison Ganter, Lisa Southwell, and Aaron McGuire that will participate.
My
Allison?
eyes are, I'm trying to see properly, so bear with me just one
Okay.
second. Okay.
I'll be happy to lead off here just for briefly, Madam Chair.
Okay.
Because we do have the benefit of having a brand new board member and just trying to get maybe everyone reoriented a little bit about where we are in terms of what's happening with Los Angeles County and the authority of the board in terms of inspecting juvenile halls and what it means for the determination of suitability. As we know, and as we've discussed, the BSCC establishes the minimum standards for juvenile halls and camps, and we conduct biannual inspections of those facilities. We do have some very specific authority with respect to juvenile halls that doesn't happen with respect to our county jails or even the juvenile camps. And it deals with what is known as a determination of the suitability. And basically it provides Welfare and Institutions Code Section 209 provides that a juvenile hall shall be considered unsuitable for the confinement of minors or youth if it is not in compliance with one or more of the minimum standards for juvenile facilities adopted by the Board of State and Community Corrections. And if within 60 days of having received notice of noncompliance from the board, and if the facility hasn't remedied those issues, that the board is required to make a determination of suitability at its next scheduled meeting. These proceedings in terms of where we are with Los Angeles actually commenced back in February of 2021 in terms of the start of that inspection cycle. And we've been through numerous re-inspections. We found them not suitable back in September. They came back into compliance in November. And then just to provide a little bit more detail about where we are, which regulations we're currently dealing with respect to both Barry J. Nydorf and Central Juvenile Hall. I'll now, I think, turn it back to Allison to kick us off in terms of where we are, but I did want to pause if there were any sort of legal questions at the outset in terms of how this is going to proceed.
Any questions of the board? It's complicated and it's layered. So if, I thought you did an excellent job of setting the stage for us.
Yeah, and certainly as we go along, if we'll have additional questions, I'm
Okay.
happy to answer.
Okay.
Thank you,
Ganter?
Erin. Greetings, Chair Penner, board members, members of the community, and colleagues. I'm Allison Ganter, Deputy Director with the Facility Standards and Operations Division. And it's really important to me to begin these reports with gratitude for Lisa Southwell and all of the work that she's done in Los Angeles, tireless work. And so thank you to Lisa for continuing this work and for genuinely being a rock star on this effort. I'm going to provide you with information regarding the ongoing monitoring of the Los Angeles County Juvenile Halls and request that the board address the issue of suitability within the meaning of the Welfare and Institutions Code, Section 209, Subdivision D, for the Barry J. Nydorf Juvenile Hall and the Central Juvenile Hall in the County of Los Angeles, with respect to the status of corrective action plans involving noncompliance with Title 15 of the California Code of Regulations. And I'll provide a brief history of what brings us here today. After a corrective action plan developed from their February 2019 inspection, both the Barry J. Nydorf Juvenile Hall and the Central Juvenile Hall were found unsuitable for the detention of minors at the September 2021 board meeting. While the facilities were eventually found suitable, after another round of corrective action, BSCC staff identified additional items of noncompliance at the facilities during reinspection. The facilities were notified of the noncompliance on November 15th of 2021, and I'll provide details on those individual sections of Title 15 as I get further into the report. The Los Angeles County Department of Probation provided a corrective action plan to the BSCC on December 10th, 2021. After that corrective action plan, the facilities were scheduled for reinspection of March 2022, and the BSCC board planned to make a final determination of suitability at the April 7th, 2022 meeting. The inspection of the Barry J. Nydorf facility occurred as scheduled between March 14th and 29th of 2022. The probation department moved the youth out of the Central Juvenile Hall prior to inspection, so that facility was not inspected as planned in March. At the April 7th, 2022 board meeting, the Barry J. Nydorf Juvenile Hall remained out of compliance with Title 15 standards. However, recognizing that there was a positive shift and trend toward corrective action and compliance, the BSCC board continued the determination of suitability for that facility and directed staff to re-inspect the facility within 30 days of the board meeting. At this meeting in April, the board declined to take further action on Central Juvenile Hall because youth were moved out of the facility and BSCC staff planned to conduct a re-inspection of the Central Juvenile Hall when youth returned to the facility. Youth returned to the Central Juvenile Hall between May 18th and May 25th of 2022, and BSCC staff completed the inspection of the facility on June 1st, 2022. And now I'll talk about the individual facilities and their items of noncompliance, and then discuss staff recommendations to the board based upon the information found in the re-inspections. The outstanding item at the Barry J. Nydorf Juvenile Hall was Section 1354 room confinement. And specifically, youth were being locked in their rooms for longer than brief periods necessary for institutional operations during shift change. After the April board meeting, the reinspection of the facility occurred on May 6th and between May 18th and 20th, 2022. Field Representative Lisa Southwell talked with as many youth as she could at the facility, reviewed available documentation, and conducted a review of a random sampling of video footage to verify compliance. Based upon her conversations with youth and an extensive review of evidence, this issue has been corrected, and there are no outstanding items of noncompliance at the Barry J. Nydorf Juvenile Hall remaining from the 2018-2020 inspection cycle. Youth reported an improvement in the use of room confinement at the facility from the past. BSCC staff is going to continue to monitor this issue going forward. The facility is operating with a new leadership team. The current senior director and directors have accomplished many positive actions since coming to the facility about 8 weeks ago. Based upon the results of this inspection, BSCC staff recommends that the board find the facility suitable within the meaning of Welfare and Institutions Code, Section 209, Subdivision D. On to Central Juvenile Hall. The outstanding items of noncompliance at the Central Juvenile Hall were Section 1327, safety checks, Section 1354.5, room confinement, and Section 1371, programs, recreation, and exercise. And this was added subsequent to the November 15th notification. This was added in February of 2022. As I mentioned, the inspection of the Central Juvenile Hall was postponed because on March 10th, 2022, the BSCC was notified by the probation department that they intended to suspend operations at the Central Juvenile Hall for 90 days. The youth were transferred to the Barry J. Nydorf Juvenile Hall to assist in facilitating leadership changes, training for staff, and needed repairs to the facility. And that information can be found in attachment F1 in your binders. The BSCC reinspection had been scheduled to begin on March 14th, 2022, and that's attachment F2 in your binders. The BSCC confirmed that youth were no longer housed in the facility during a site visit on March 17th, 2022, and notified the probation department that reinspection would commence when youth returned to the facility. The BSCC learned on May 16th that youth were going to be transferred back to the facility, back to Central Juvenile Hall from the Barry J. Nydorf facility sooner than the originally proposed 90 days. In small phased groups, this was to occur in small phased groups. And on May 18th, the BSCC notified the department that it would re-inspect the facility on June 1st. And that is in attachment F3 in your binder. Youth began moving back to the Central Juvenile Hall in small phased groups on May 18th. The final group of youth returned on May 25th, 2022. BSCC staff were on site on May 20th, May 23rd, and May 25th of 2022, and the final reinspection for the above noted items of noncompliance was conducted on June 1st, 2022. During this inspection, BSCC staff spoke with all available youth housed at the facility and reviewed documentation that had been generated since the facility resumed operations on May 18th. To reiterate, our findings of compliance and noncompliance are based on the evidence available at the facility since May 18th, when youth returned to the facility. And I'm going to go out of order on the 3 items of noncompliance so the discussion tracks with the staff recommendations at the conclusion of the report. BSCC staff found that the item of noncompliance with Section 1354.5, room confinement at the Central Juvenile Hall has been corrected. While there had been several disruptions involving youth during the phased return, the new leadership team has worked diligently to reduce the use of room confinement in comparison to past use. BSCC staff found that the item of noncompliance with Section 1371, programs, recreation, and exercise, which was added in February, has been corrected. Activities and programs are being regularly updated. Improvements have been made to recreational equipment, and staff at the facility are taking ownership of activities to ensure youth participation in those activities. BSCC staff will continue to monitor both of these issues over the coming months and certainly during the upcoming 2022 biennial inspection. Finally, to determine compliance with 1327 safety checks, BSCC staff reviewed safety checks conducted at the facility between May 18th and May 29th of 2022. To verify compliance, staff conducted a video review of randomly selected dates between those times. While paper safety check logs indicated compliance, video review did not support this finding of compliance. Several incidents on the video recording indicate that while staff wrote down that they had completed safety checks within 15 minutes, several of those safety checks were not actually completed. In addition, there were several incidents in which staff documented that a room was closed, which signals that youth are outside of their rooms. However, the video recording showed that youth remained in their room after the time closed was documented on the safety check logs. In multiple incidents, more than 15 minutes went by without documented or observable safety checks. These patterns occurred in multiple units across different shifts. In the December 10th, 2021 Corrective Action Plan, and this is attachment F4 in your binders, the probation department indicated that it would have managers conduct random reviews of video and in-person safety checks, documenting their findings and providing immediate correction and instruction to staff when they observe noncompliance. The probation department has not demonstrated evidence that this review is occurring. However, it should be noted that the entire administrative team at the Central Juvenile Hall is new to the facility, having been there only 8 weeks and beginning work with the youth housed at the facility on May 18th, 2022. Although the new administrative team has not yet implemented this manager's review, they have begun to address issues related to the non-compliance of safety checks. Based on the information reviewed during inspection, BSCC staff recommends finding the Central Juvenile Hall out of compliance with Section 1327 safety checks. And after hearing all of this information, staff recommends that the board, 1, find the Barry J. Nydorf Juvenile Hall suitable within the meaning of the Welfare and Institutions Code, Section 209, Subdivision A4. 2, find the Central Juvenile Hall compliant with 1354.5 room confinement and 1371 programs, recreation, and exercise. And 3, find the Central Juvenile Hall non-compliant with Section 1327 safety checks and make a determination of the suitability of the Central Juvenile Hall within the meaning of the Welfare and Institutions Code, Section 209, Subdivision A4. And I'll read that particular section. I know that Aaron went over some of that as well. This section requires that if the board, after inspection of a jail, juvenile hall, etc., finds that it is not being operated and maintained as a suitable place for the confinement of minors, the board shall give notice of its finding to all persons having authority to confine minors pursuant to this chapter, and commencing 60 days thereafter, the facility shall not be used for confinement of minors until the board, as the case may be, finds after reinspection of the facility that the conditions that rendered the facility unsuitable have been remedied and the facility is a suitable place for the confinement of minors. And finally, if the board determines the Central Juvenile Hall is not suitable for the confinement of youth, they may wish to consider whether to establish a timeline to give Los Angeles County the opportunity to be re-inspected prior to the expiration on the 60-day time limit. If so, staff would recommend scheduling a board meeting on July 28th, 2022 to make a further determination of suitability. Thank you, Chair Penner. This concludes my report, and I'm happy to take any questions from the board.
Thank you, Allison. Now to the board. Obviously, a very complicated board agenda item with very serious ramifications. If you have any questions, concerns, or comments, please feel free to make them now.
Kathleen Allison, just a recommendation on an issue that appears to be ongoing. As a leader of a very large organization who struggled with this in the past, there are numerous electronic solutions to resolve that. And I would encourage LA County to evaluate an electronic solution to the security checks.
Madam Chair, Kirk Haynes. I would echo Secretary Allison's recommendation, and I know that's been one of the things that LA County's been working on to try to come up with a remedy for that. So certainly I would recommend that an electronic solution be implemented. However, I would really love to hear, and I know we have Los Angeles County on the line, so I'd really like to hear about their plans moving forward with, in regard to that, because I think that's really critical to the conversation that we have. And then I'd like to have a couple of follow-up questions with them once I hear from them regarding especially this specific issue around room checks.
Certainly, that's absolutely what I think should occur. And prior to asking LA to comment, anybody else from the board like to speak? You are welcome to hold your remarks until after we hear from LA. Seeing nothing from the board, I would invite whomever it is that was going to represent LA on this issue. Chief Gonzalez, are you there?
I apologize, Madam Chair. I should have mentioned at the beginning, Board Member Garcia has elected to recuse himself from this matter. Mr. Garcia recently got a new job with the Office of Youth and Community Restoration and elected not to participate given his new job duties. So thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. And I would note from the record that he has not been in the room during any time. He left long before this agenda item began. So looking to LA, Adam, I understand they're on the phone.
Yes, Los Angeles County, please dial *6 and go ahead and speak. Your line is unmuted. Please go ahead and speak.
Good afternoon. Good morning still. Madam Chair, members of the board, community members and colleagues. I'm Chief Adolfo Gonzalez, pronouns he, him, and his. I'm the Progressive Chief of Los Angeles County. With me today, I have, first of all, thank you for the opportunity to address the body. Today, I have with me the Chiefs Ellen Bettino, Chief Karen Fletcher, Bureau Chief Valerie Van Kirk, Superintendent John Bynum, Superintendent Janice Jones, and our Administrative Director, Robert Smythe, that would be here to answer some questions. If I may, can I go ahead and read a prepared statement we had?
Please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm very proud of the work that our staff has done to achieve full compliance at the Barry J. Nordoff Juvenile Hall by remedying the only item that was identified as being non-compliant, and that is room confinement. Staff there worked very hard to make sure we were in compliance, and as the evidence show, they are now in full compliance. As discussed in the March 10th, 2022 meeting, I ordered a 90-day temporary suspension of operations at Central Juvenile Hall and moved our use to Barry J. Nordoff to facilitate the necessary facility repairs and improvements and to make significant changes in our leadership and to provide training to the new staff that was coming in to lead both juvenile halls. Youth and staff were moved to Barry J. Nordoff on March 12th and 13th. Effective April 11th, 2022, the new leadership team was selected and assigned to both Barry J. Nordoff and Central Juvenile Hall. And I can tell you that they hit the ground running. The leadership changes include the new bureau chief, 2 new superintendents, and 9 directors that were recently promoted or transferred to the new assignments. In addition of getting leadership in place, doing a temporary suspension at Central Juvenile Hall, we invested approximately $5.5 million in repairs and renovations to the Central Juvenile Hall. As you know, that facility was built in 1912. We wanted to ensure that our youth and the staff returned to a facility that was safe, clean, and well-maintained. During this time, we were also able to have a BSCC representative, Lisa Southwell, train all of our new leadership and also our supervisors on both facilities. So I appreciate and thank Lisa for that effort. Youth and staff will return to Central Juvenile Hall in phases, beginning on May 18th and May 25th. Our preliminary inspection of Central Juvenile Hall was conducted after May 23rd, with a full reinspection occurring immediately upon full capacity at the juvenile hall facility, which is June 1st, 2022. Our reinspection focused on 3 previously identified areas of non-compliance, and as you heard from Ellison, it was room confinement, programming, recreation, and exercise, and safety checks. We were found in full compliance of 2 out of the 3. Room confinement and programming, recreation, and exercises were in compliance. We reached full compliance through training of our staff, coaching and mentoring, and monitoring both written documentation and review of video footage. But we continue to work with a community-based organization to return to our facilities. Many of them were not involved because of COVID. Our staff have effectively implemented programming to include cognitive behavior intervention worksheet, angry ice break and self-care assessments, forward-thinking cognitive behavior intervention, responsible behavior interactive journaling, and behavior checks. Staff have also continually facilitated visitation, religious services, and outdoor recreation for the youth and their families. Although we were found non-compliant in the safety check at Central Juvenile Hall, we have made significant improvements since our last inspection and continue to work to reach full compliance. We have taken immediate action to address the outstanding issues with technical assistance from the Board of State Community Corrections. We have implemented and issued a revised safety checklist and also an instructional memo to all juvenile hall staff with the assistance of specific areas of concern of non-compliance. And as mentioned previously by two of the members of this body, we took a delegation to San Bernardino to look at the electronic monitoring device for room checks. And I'd like to report that I have the Director of Administrative Services here, also does the financing and procurement, that we are in the process of procuring a electronic safety check device that will assist us in performing and tracking the safety checks at each of the halls. Staffing continues to be a concern and a challenge for us. We have a large number of staff that are out on a variety of reasons for leave, including routine call-outs. We are currently working with our county's Department of Human Resources to assist us in addressing the challenges. This effort, we hope, will return some staff back to work as appropriate, and also supported the hiring of new staff in critical vacant positions. We are firmly committed to our mission and success of our youth and our staff, and we're committed to gaining and maintaining compliance on all regulations. We have demonstrated and proven progress is possible, as evidenced by the changes we have been able to make and implement so far. In closing, we're a large organization. It takes time to implement change, especially changes in policy, practice, procedures, and change in culture. We appreciate the board's patience in this process and guidance as we push forward to gain and sustain compliance, and hope that the board will afford us the opportunity to continue to address the areas of non-compliance at the Central Juvenile Hall. I welcome any questions from the board. That concludes our remarks. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Back to the board now, after hearing from Chief Gonzalez. Are there any questions, comments? Chief Mills.
I do have a question on staffing, Chief Gonzalez. First of all, thank you for the progress that you've made. I know your staff is working hard, and I think that you're headed the right direction. You mentioned that you still have a large number of staff out. What percentages of staff has been absent on a regular basis? And what are the purposes of that? Is it just calling off sick? Or is it long-term injuries that many departments struggle with?
Thank you for the question. Yeah, we have about 47% of our staff being out for a variety of reasons.
25? Did you say 25, Chief?
47%,
47, sorry.
huge number.
Okay.
So we have mandatory overtime, and we're also deploying staff on the field to support us.
Chair, if I can follow up on that.
Please.
What actions are you taking to work with the Employees Association to bring that number down? And how is that working?
We're meeting weekly with our Department of Human Resources, and they're working with their labor union and labor management folks to get our staff back. I personally have spoken with the leadership of the unions, and they have sent out safety alerts to the members to encourage them to return to work. We also have a wellness unit that goes to the officers' homes and does wellness checks and encouraging those officers to return to work. And in some cases, we have had some officers that do come back to work.
Kathleen Allison, I have a follow-up question. So when you say 47% vacancies, what's the percentage of your day-to-day shifts that you can actually cover with overtime or other means? And I also have a question, are the vacant shifts impacting room confinement and programming and other critical day-to-day operations.
Well, we meet 100% of the requirements for ratios at the facilities. And we're working with, I mentioned earlier, with the unions to bring some of our stuff back. And these are people that are on medical leave. It could be FLMA, it could be other kinds of medical leave. And we're working with the union and with the Department of Human Resources to reach out to their medical providers to see if we can get some of those items addressed.
Chief Haynes.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Chief Gonzalez. This is Chief Haynes for your work, the progress that's been made in Nydorf and also the work that's been done in Central. I just had a couple of follow-up questions regarding the electronic system that you're going to be bringing in to address the safety check issue. How long, can you give us an approximate amount of time? I know you've been working with your procurement and your purchasing department in order to get that in. Can you give us an idea of how long will it take for that to be operational? One. And then the other question around that is, are there any labor considerations by bringing that system in that will delay that, or that has been something that you had to deal with implementing that as well?
Let me answer the second question first. The labor issues have not been a problem. In meeting with the union, they're supportive as well. And I have our director, Mr. Robert Smythe, that can answer the first question regarding the timeline of acquiring the device. Robert?
Hi, good morning. We have the funding issues worked out. We have an administrative process to go through for procurement. We are working through that process. That includes approval from our central administrative office and from the Board of Supervisors. So in terms of procurement, there are some deliverables we don't control, but we believe it'll take 3 to 4 months to get this on board and implemented.
If I may, a couple of questions. Knowing that you moved back to the facility in less than the 90 days, and you had staffing shortage, as you state below, were your staffing issues as grave when you were all in Nydorf? And did the move back exacerbate the staffing? I mean, your staffing ratio.
There were less call-ups now at the Barry J. when we first were there.
Well, I have some very strong feelings on this issue, understanding that it would be best if you were able to have an electronic room check system for all involved. It is not a reg or a requirement that we can ignore. It has to be done manually. It has to be done on a regular basis. While we have been able to, in times of crisis and short staffing, relaxed other regulations, there has never been a time where we have relaxed the regulation of room checks. This is simply not allowed, nor is it tolerable. We continue to come back to LA, and while you have made great strides towards coming into compliance, this is an instance where not only was staff, lack of a better way to say it, faking the room checks by just documenting them without actually moving to go forward and do the room checks. There was another layer of accountability in that supervisors in your facilities would be reviewing those tapes and assuring to you as their chief and a good leader in that department that those were actually being done. So we have a twofold problem. And I, for one, don't think 3 or 4 months down the road is going to satisfy my concerns until you get an electronic system. I need to know that that's happening right now. Our recommendation allows for 60 days. I don't know that you can come into compliance by then, but I think I feel strongly that now's the time we draw the line in the sand and say, with or without electronics, you have supervisorial staff that is there to review those tapes and ensure that it's being done. You tell me that you're covering the ratios you're required to do by law. if those people are in the facility, they need to do their jobs. They need to move from room to room every 15 minutes and get the job done. So while I empathize, because I too have run facilities where we suffered from staffing shortages, and I have, as during my time as the chief, had times where we saw staff plagiarizing room checks. We can't allow for that kind of error because it only takes one instance where a young person isn't checked on within their 15-minute time limit where you have a grave tragedy. And we know what's going on right now in LA. We expect you'll do your best to correct that in the next 60 days, but I have not heard anything that really reduces my concern and my desire to go forward with the recommendations staff has.
Chair Penner, I want to echo your comments and your concerns. And one thing that I'd like to hear from Chief Gonzalez is, you know, when we worked with the Merced County Sheriff on some of the issues, and he acknowledged in his comments to this board that the pressure that was brought to bear on his department helped to create some improvements and some things that could be done in order to address the issue that was being brought to their attention. It is my hope that that same thing can happen here. I'm encouraged by some of the progress that's been made so far by LA County. The other thing I'll qualify this by saying is that this is unique to LA County. This is not something that we see up and down the state of California in our juvenile institutions. This is not normal, and it should not be normal, and it should not be tolerated. But I think my ask is, and I know we provided some technical assistance from Lisa Southwell, but what can the board do to help move this process along, Chief? Because I agree, 3 or 4 months in order to get an electronic system in and that be the remedy, that won't be acceptable. But to put in place the things that you talked about in your corrective action plan, including the managerial checks of things that are going to be happening to make sure that safety checks are being consistently done. Those things have to be done. If the department's going to rely on a paper-based system, then this board wants to know what can we do to make sure that you can implement that and that there is some support behind you to make sure that you're successful in moving that forward, if it's going to continue to be a paper-based system for 3 or 4 months.
Thank you for the question, Chief. Yes, the paper-based system will continue. We have staff that are directors and supervisors now that are walking the units, working the floors. I've been to Central, and I have seen personally the directors and supervisors in the units myself. And I know that this is one thing that we're going to really focus on. We're very concerned also about the 50-minute checks. I think it's very critical. It's one of our main core functions. And I want to make sure that we're doing it thoroughly and correctly and accurately. So by having the oversight, I think will really help. We're not going to wait 3 or 4 months to get the electronic system in place. We already started with the new checkup list. We started with a directive that was presented to staff, and the training that started with staff too regarding this particular item. But this is an item of great concern. I have been in the hall, like I mentioned previously at this board meeting, at 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning to see the staff at Central and Barry J. Norda doing those room checks. So I've been there personally walking the floor. But now our staff, our directors, supervisors are doing the same thing. So I think one of the biggest issues is make sure that we all understand that this is a critical item that we need to attend to, and having the leadership present to support our staff, and having our staff given the opportunity to go in there and do those 50-minute checks. So I think that's one thing that we're really focusing on right now.
Chief, this is,
if I may add, video reviews are happening now that we came back to
thank
Central.
you. That was what I was going to ask. This is Chair Penner. Understanding, having administration in the building, walking is certainly an excellent tactic to take, but it is review of those tapes, I think, that will be of some give some confidence to this board as we wait this 60 days. We want to assure that that's going to take place. And So I hope that is of paramount importance to you.
We're also, if I might add, we're also going to bring in what we call work hardening supervisors to come and review those videos. So we can have like a third party reviewing those videos as well.
Thank you. Any other questions, concerns, comments?
Hey,
Sheriff?
Chief, this is Sheriff Shannon Dykes. In reference to your staffing, almost having 50% of the staffing, the facility that you moved everybody to, do you think maybe we moved them prematurely back? And I'm worried about you being able to balance the number of employees that you have now, trying to run two facilities. And do you have the capacity to keep the employees in one and maybe reduce some of the stress level of both the employees and buy you time to implement the new checks, the electronic checks program?
The facility being so far apart that it added to the call outs. When we thought about bringing them together, we thought we were going to generate the benefit of having additional staffing, and the opposite effect took place. I think having the staff that live close to the facilities report to the facility was much better than having to drive an hour, 2 hours to get to work each way. And that's one of the things we hear from staff is the long distance drive. So the hope is that, or what we're trying to accomplish is that getting the staff to work in the facility that's nearest to their home.
Thank you.
Sure.
Supervisor Chavez.
Thank you, Chief Gonzalez. I was hoping you could just walk us through the strategy to bring employees back in a little more detail. And part of the reason I'm asking the question is that it does appear that the tension and stress with the half your staff out and also, just forced overtime is, I think we're experiencing it across the state. But that level, I frankly haven't run across that in any of the cities or counties that I've been engaging in. So could you just walk us through how that 47% gets lowered and over what period of time?
Yes, thank you for the question. That's why we're working very closely with the county's Department of Human Resources and our own personnel office or our own human resource department to identify which of those individuals can come back. For example, we have a number of staff that have 8-hour restrictions. In other words, they can only work 8 hours. But they can, so if we need to extend them, or they say they have a medical restriction. So our human resource department is reaching out to those doctors to see what are the limitations. Perhaps it's a fitness for duty evaluation. Then we have other staff that are using FLMA that may not be eligible for that. So we're going back and reviewing those cases to see whether or not that's appropriate. And as you know, there's a limited number of hours that they can take a year and to see whether or not those hours have been utilized. So we're looking at every little angle that we can find to see what we can do to bring our staff back. And working not only with, like say, Department of Human Resources from the county, but also working with the labor partners to get their employees back or their members back. And we're meeting weekly to get an update every week so we can find out how we're doing, what's the progress, how does that look. So the staff from the county Department of Human Resources are very well involved and connected with this process, and they're kind of leading us through this effort.
And Chief Gonzalez, what's the vacancy rate? I don't mean the absentee rate. I mean your vacancy rate.
I don't have that in front of me. Let me ask my admin director if you know.
The 47% is in total includes the vacancies. The percentage of that is vacant, percentage of the whole that is vacancies, I'd only be making a guess. It could be somewhere between 10, 15%, but again, I have to look that up.
And so you're also, as we all are across the state, looking to hire as well? I mean, you have a robust hiring process going on, I'm assuming.
Yeah, we're looking at hiring, we're looking at promotions, we're looking at recruiting. So we're taking a look at all those elements to help us bring some staff in. But as you know, most of the like other departments are having a challenge getting the candidates to apply. And that's one of the efforts that we're going to really hit strong is go out there and move proactive recruiting. I know some departments have bonuses, for example, you got a signing bonus is going to come in based on years of experience, or retention bonus. If you stay here for a couple of years, you get another bonus. So we're evaluating all that right now.
And is the board of supervisors, as you're going through your budget process, is that something that's being considered now to assist you?
We're looking at filling vacancies. It doesn't require board approval. We're also looking at use of smart technology for recruitment that identifies who clicks on our website, where they click, how deep they click into it, what the profile of that person is. And that way we can better direct our recruitment resource to where the successes have already been achieved. So continue to take advantage of what is smart in recruitment and to a lesser extent, move away from things that are no longer working with recruitment. So it's a better way of using our resources for recruitment more efficiently.
Thank you. And but that's very helpful. And the reason I was asking about the budget process is that if you were going to be using other kinds of tools like bonuses, or if there were other worksite improvements that you thought might enhance your ability to hire, I wondered if that's something that's already going through process, or if you have the capacity to do that without needing further approval.
You're correct. That does take board approval to provide for the bonuses, and we are in discussions. Those discussions begin with our CEO. That's the way the process works. Then we move that forward to the board. So it will require the board's approval. The CEO does its due diligence, which is underway now, and then we move it to the board's public agenda for approval.
And then my last question is, I just want to make sure that I understood a response that was made earlier. The percentage of folks that you had who were calling out, I'm presuming sick, or that stopped, frankly, coming to work because the facility location change, of that 47%, or is that remedied? Do you have workers coming back to work that weren't coming to work because of the distance?
Yes, we do have some, because the distance of traveling is not an impact as well before. We usually have carpools where people will come to Central, for example, get in a van and will carpool a whole bunch of staff over to Barry J. Narda. Those staff that were calling out before are reporting to Central.
So during that time, did you exceed that 47% vacant or no-show rate? Or is 47 the highest it's been?
Well, the highest has been.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much for answering my questions.
Chair Penner, just I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
Logistical question. Again, Chief, this is Chief Haynes. Can you give me an idea of what your population is at Central now? How many youth do you have in custody? And then also, what's the capacity, the rated capacity of that facility based on your staffing configuration?
Thank you, Chief. For Central right now, we have 111 youth, 97 males, 14 females. And the rated capacity, I don't have it in front of me, but we can get it for you. We're grabbing it right now.
And then how about for Barry J. Nightoff? I'd like to know the same for that one.
For Barry J. Nightoff, we had 193 with only one female.
You have currently 193 youth at Barry J?
Yes.
Okay. And what's the rated capacity there?
We'll get in that one too. I don't have that in front of me.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Sheriff Groden.
All right, Dean Groden, Sheriff from Lassen County. Appreciate the work you've done, Chief, on particularly Barry J. Neindorf but I agree with the chair that, we can't soften the standards, and ultimately, I think we're going to have to find the facility unsuitable right now. So my question is to staff on the last bullet point on your recommendation. It discusses establishing a timeline to give them the opportunity to be re-inspected. Is that something that you would, just a little input for guiding our actions? Is that something that we would defer to staff typically, or would you want the board to establish a timeline short of the 60-day mark for reinspection?
I'm gonna look over to Aaron to address that issue.
We would want the board to take that action. You may recall, and again, we have limited experience on how we do these. What we did in September was we found both facilities unsuitable, and we structured the notice to the county in a way that allowed us to reconvene for a board meeting prior to the expiration of the 60 days. And because they were able to come into compliance with those regulations at the time, they were able to be found suitable at the November board meeting. The question the board should consider is where we are and the calendar. If the board finds that they are out of compliance with safety checks and therefore are not suitable for the confinement of minors, we send that notice, which will then trigger the 60 days, and whether or not this body would want to reconvene to determine suitability again before the expiration of the 60 days. And so the date we at least picked for consideration is July 28th. And that sort of puts us about, how many days out? About 50 days out. And so if they weren't able to get safety checks back in line by the time the board reconvened, then they'd have 10 days to move the youth out of the facility. And if they did come back into compliance, noting all the things Chief Haynes and the chair have noted in terms of making sure supervisors are reviewing those videotapes to make sure that it's not Ms. Southwell who is finding the issues of noncompliance, but that the supervisory staff are actually finding the issues of noncompliance and remedying those at the time those things are occurring. That would give them an opportunity to come into compliance then for that July date.
And in additional to that, I think, council, that would give them ample time to attempt to remedy the problem, give us ample time to get back in and take a look at whether or not the room checks are being done as we'd like, and then also gives the board an ability to convene and consider the issue regardless of what occurs, and then 10 days follow-up for vacating the hall should they not be in compliance by then.
And Madam Chair, just going back to Chief Haynes' question, the rated capacity at Barry J. Nydorf is 518, and at Central, the rated capacity is 556. Thank you, Casey.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Anything? Yes, Chief Mills.
So the inspection, when it was done, the videos we looked at, what was the failure rate on those videos?
I don't have an exact number. We were looking for a pattern and a pattern across units and shifts, and we found that pattern. So I don't have an exact number, but I can tell you that it was multiple incidents across different units and across different shifts. So that's where you can start to notice it's not just one particular unit and one particular group of staff, and that's what brings us to this.
Yeah, I guess what I'm looking for, it wasn't just a once or twice occasion, it was a systematic failure.
Yes.
And Chair, if I can just comment to the chair on this. I have a serious concern over the failure rate of people to show for work. And we all know, those of us who have employees, that going through the workman's comp process, it takes months just to get an appointment. And so these folks are not coming back soon. And to me, it's almost to the point where it's a systemic failure of the organization. And I would encourage Chief Gonzalez to look at the Camden, New Jersey model, where they dissolved the police department and had to start over. If the employee association cannot come to work, he might have to check and think about other solutions because the children are at risk. The county becomes liable for all those risks. It's a significant issue that their union ought to pay attention to.
Couldn't agree more, Chief. It's systemic. It is not for lack of the executives in Los Angeles County Probation Department wanting to do the right thing. With all of that said, there are remedies that are often used in departments that run institutions of redeploying staff, of course, directed overtime is not our first choice, but there are things that need to be considered. And factually, congratulations to you, Chief Gonzalez for adhering to the ratios and getting people on the job to do what needs to be done. You have a failure of people doing it. And regardless of the 45% staffing issue you have, which is enormous, I don't think anybody in this room thinks anything but that. This is intolerable. And from this individual's position, I wish you well to remedy it. I don't see any way to look past this recommendation. Any other comments from the board? Being none, I would ask Adam, anybody in let me start with San Jose. Anybody in San Jose wish to comment? Being none, Adam on Zoom?
Currently, I have one member of the public on Zoom.
Please,
That would be Victoria Rodriguez.
thank you.
Victoria, go ahead.
Hi, good afternoon, everybody. I'm calling in because I am listening in and I would like to comment on behalf of the officers that I know we're mentioning that are not coming to work. Yes, some are workers' compensation related leaves. However, there is a vast majority of staff who is just not coming in because of the lack of support they feel. It's, I don't want to obliviously say there is no support. There is support, but it is at its minimum, the worst that we've ever seen. And it has a lot to do with the lack of supervisors that we have currently at work. I understand that we have vacant items that have been vacant for almost a couple of years now, it's my understanding. So that puts a strain on our supervisors and it's a domino effect. We do have, I believe, two experienced directors that are trying to guide the three added directors at Central Juvenile Hall. But again, it's at its minimum. The staff will feel support, it will come to work. But right now, everyone's feeling there is not much support. The guidance is minimal, and I think it's not intentional, but I think it is a transition. And the transition is happening where those new directors, the new superintendent, and to some level, a little higher than that, are learning the detention services process. So everybody's morale is just, not at its best. And that's only with the support we're talking about. We're not even going to tap into, people who don't feel like they're warranted for positions of leadership when they were overlooked, yet they're expected to operate at a leadership capacity, if that makes sense. But I definitely know firsthand from the officers that I've spoken to and that I've vigorously called and encouraged, come to work, because if you don't come to work, we don't go home. And we can't force them to come to work to feel strained, to not go home to dinner, not go home, to your child's baseball game, miss events, don't get vacations because there's not enough officers. That's what they're up against. And I don't think not one bit anybody in the probation department, from high up to down low, does not want to do the right thing. But that is what we're facing.
Thank you.
I have no more public comment.
Okay, close the queue, please. Anybody in the room have a comment card filled out and ready to speak?
There is no one in the room.
Okay, thank you. Back to the board. Any other comments? Seeing none, I'm looking for a motion in a second. I'm sorry, hold on a minute. I think.
Well, yeah, I would suggest we sort of take the items in order on the staff recommendation. So on,
Okay.
I know it'll be a little bit, or we can, I would say, take items 1 and 2 together, which is a finding of suitable for Barry J. Nydorf and compliance for Central with respect to room confinement and the program's recreation and exercise. I would invite the board to make a motion to approve those staff recommendations on items 1 and 2 in the board report.
Looking for a motion on items 1 and 2.
This is Kelly Vernon. I'll move to approve items 1 and 2 as presented by staff.
Second,
Dean Grouden, now second.
motion and a second. Adam?
Chair Penner,
Aye.
Miss Allison,
Aye.
Mr. Grouden,
Aye.
Mr. Dykes,
Aye.
Ms. Chavez,
Yes.
Mr. Haynes,
Aye.
Ms. Vernon,
Aye.
Ms. Guard,
Abstain.
Mr. Mills,
Aye.
Mr. Garcia recused, Ms. Kumpion.
Aye.
Madam Chair, the motion carries for item 1 and 2.
Thank you. Moving to item 3. Looking for a motion in a second.
I can, go ahead.
Motion.
I just want to make sure to clarify on, as we get there, I think Sheriff Groudon's going to do it. And I do want to embarrassingly confess, we do have a typo, at least in the reference to safety checks. That should actually be section 1328. Oops.
And can we say
Apologize for that.
it's inclusive of a July 28th, 2022 meeting?
That is the question, whether that will be the motion, and look to Sheriff Groudon for and maybe if we could do a poll of the board members, if their availability for, make sure we have a quorum on July 28th. It's an off calendar board meeting.
Can we ask board members by a show of hands? You may not have had a chance to look at your books, but if we could find out how many board members would be available on July 28th, I think that's going to be helpful, including you, Supervisor Chavez, of course. Hands up if you can. Thank you. 1, 2, 3. Got you, Chair Penner, Chair Ellison, and Chief Burns. Okay, so we have no's from King, Hurd, and Kumpion. Oh, great, thank you. No's and. Supervisor Chavez, the no.
I am having a difficult time hearing, but I don't know about the 28th.
Okay, we can get that. What, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
We also have Guillermo that we need to check with, and Scott Budnick.
Thank you.
Is there, oh, this is going to drive
And then I'll.
Aaron nuts. In and around the 28th, does that help us at all? If to give staff the ability, rather than do it on a Thursday, maybe do it on a Monday or Tuesday. I know Tuesday's board days, but on a Monday, can we move forward with the motion with a aye on July
With
28th?
the reconvene, how many, what's the minimum days prior, Madam Chair, that you would want the board to meet before
Like,
the
I
60
think the
day?
first part of that week, if we could give ourselves that full week, we may be able to come up with a quorum.
Sure, yeah.
Does that,
I don't know if perhaps any of those who said no could switch to yes if we looked at Monday or Tuesday. I'm sorry, what were you gonna say, Chair Program?
And I say the July 28th date was 50 days, correct? I mean, is there any, is August, first week of August worse, or is there an issue with pushing it that far?
Oh, not wanting to really see time at the end if there did need to be a.
Oh, correct, okay.
Just for Madam Chair, for me, that earlier in that week would be better. Monday,
Okay.
Tuesday would be a better
all right.
2 days for me.
Tuesday's a board meeting, so I don't want any of you who have those kinds of issues to get in the middle of that.
I'll make
So-
myself available anytime during the week.
Okay. Okay. So I think if we give staff the authority to find a meeting date within the week, what's the first date of that week? Sure, well, I don't, we should count, but I think that anywhere from the 25th through the 29th.
That sounds great,
okay,
Madam
that
Chair.
would be
And
great.
we would note, there's some good news coming, that we would not hold a July 14 meeting. We would take all the July items and put them on this later date.
Okay. All right. So Sheriff Groudon, do you want to
I was
continue
gonna-
with your motion?
Yeah, I was gonna try to.
Okay.
Okay, so I'd move that we find the Central Juvenile Hall non-compliant with section 1328 safety checks and make a determination that the Central Juvenile Hall is unsuitable within the meaning of Welfare Institutions Code section 209 subdivision A4. That
Perfect.
makes sense. And then I'm not sure what we need on the next piece of that.
Well, why don't
that
we take it one at a time? I think that's probably the better way to go.
Okay.
Yeah,
So
let's just start there.
Okay, that's my
Okay.
motion.
I'll second.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second. Adam?
Chair Penner,
Aye.
Miss Allison,
Aye.
Mr. Groudon,
Aye.
Mr. Dykes,
Aye.
Ms. Chavez,
Yes.
Mr. Haynes,
Aye.
Ms. Vernon,
Aye.
Ms. Guard,
Abstain.
Mr. Mills,
Aye.
Mr. Garcia recused, Ms. Kumpion.
Aye.
Madam Chair, the motion carries for item 3,
Thank you. Now,
first portion.
thank you.
Yeah.
And then we can entertain a motion to reconvene the board meeting the week of
July 25th.
July 25th.
Thank you.
Or I'll say this, how about the week of July 25th or upon call of the chair, just in case.
Let's do that. Thank you. The motion is to convene a meeting the week of July 25th or on call of the chair. We had a,
I'll make that motion.
have a first, second, please?
Second.
First and a second. Adam?
Chair Penner,
Aye.
Miss Allison,
Aye.
Mr. Groudon,
Aye.
Mr. Dykes,
Aye.
Ms. Chavez,
Yes.
Mr. Haynes,
Aye.
Ms. Vernon,
Aye.
Ms. Guard,
Abstain.
Mr. Mills,
Aye.
Mr. Garcia recused, Ms. Kumpion.
Aye.
Madam Chair, the motion carries.
Thank you. And we're moving now to item G for information only. Allison? Thank you to all of you for that long haul.
Please just bear with me 1 second so I can get my presentation ready.
While we're waiting, Guillermo is available. So you know, so we're.
Okay, excellent. Thank you so much. Sorry about that. I was going to say good morning. It's afternoon, Chair Penner, members of the board, members of the community and colleagues. I'm Allison Ganter, again, Deputy Director with the Facility Standards and Operations Division. And I'm here before you to provide the regular update of detention facility inspection status and non-compliance issues. I'm going to start with the adult items of non-compliance, and you can see, I know this is not ideal. You have the documents in your binder as well. And I can attempt to it might moosh up the text, but we'll figure that part out. Really quick overview, the codes that are assigned to items of non-compliance, green, it means they're in a corrective action process. We haven't yet made a final determination about the item. Yellow and gray means that the agency is working through corrective action and the BSCC does not feel that there is a substantial threat to the safety or the security of the people housed in facilities or working in those facilities. And red can mean several things, including that there's been no response to the BSCC report, but also that there's an immediate threat to physical or mental health within that initial 30 and 60 days or 90 days in the case of juvenile facilities related to the enhanced inspection process. So I'm really happy to fix my screen and let you know, and I don't know why, okay, that many of the items of non-compliance that have been added recently have dropped off. You'll see some of these long-term issues. The most recent item is Del Norte County. It's been 207 days since their initial inspection report. However, you can see that as recently as just a few short weeks ago, and I believe also this morning, our team is in contact with the Sheriff's Department. They're mitigating their issue of non-compliance with safety checks, and BSCC staff is working through those issues with them. We do not feel that there's a substantial threat to physical or mental health to the people at the facility. And very quickly, I'll just go through. There are no other new issues of non-compliance that haven't yet been corrected. So as items are corrected, If you look at the bottom of your paper or you scroll to the bottom of your screen, you can see that the majority of items of non-compliance identified in adult detention facilities have been corrected. And again, we stay in continuous contact with those agencies where there are current items of non-compliance, and we provide regular updates to this dashboard to make sure that the agencies are working through the issues. So again, we have no recommendations for the adult detention facilities for the board to request that a sheriff appear before the board and discuss those issues. I'll switch over to the juvenile items of non-compliance. Set switch. Okay, that's it. Excellent. The codes are the same. You will notice we recently conducted the inspection in the Los Angeles County Probation Department. Now, I just want to confirm that the issues that we were talking about with the juvenile halls are outstanding from the previous inspection cycle, from the 2018-2020 inspection cycle. We have not yet completed the inspection for this current inspection cycle for the Los Angeles County Juvenile Halls. So the items of non-compliance that you see here are related to the inspection that took place recently at the camp facilities in Los Angeles County. There are a number of items of non-compliance. They are in corrective action. They are working through those issues with BSCC staff, and we do not believe that there is serious risk of physical or mental harm to physical or mental health of the young people or the people working in those facilities. I do want to point that out. We don't recommend that the chief come and speak to the board at those issues, about those issues at this time. Again, they have 90 days within the Welfare and Institutions Code to take care of those issues and submit corrective action plans. There are no other current items of non-compliance in the juvenile detention facilities that rise to the level of inviting the chief probation officer to come before the board. And this dashboard works the same way. As items of non-compliance are identified and corrected, I'll go back to Placer in a second. They come to the bottom of the form. I apologize. I left off. There is also an item of non-compliance in Placer County related to the fact that the inspection of their school program wasn't conducted by a third-party inspector. The regulation requires that school programs are not inspected by somebody that works in that school program. So again, it's in the green zone. They still have 90 days. They're at 69 days to fix that. And it does not represent a threat to physical or mental health at this time. Take any questions that the board may have.
Any questions from the board? Seeing none.
Madam Chair, if I may, this is Katie Howard speaking. The clarity of this information, I just want to note for the board, as some of you have been here since we were first directed by the governor back in January of 2020 to improve the accountability and transparency and public information and regular review by the board of outstanding items of non-compliance and whether and how they had been corrected. I just have to give tremendous credit to Allison and her team to be able to lay all this information out for you. Sure, you might need your magnifying glasses, but to have everything laid out for us in such a clear fashion that includes timelines, that includes a professional assessment of do we need to invite the sheriff or the probation chief to come in. I am just really so impressed by the quality of this. And it's really important. I think we all believe this, that the information should be readily available to anybody in the state of California, in the entire world, who might want to know about our jail and juvenile detention inspections. So Allison, thank you.
Thank you, Katie.
Ditto. Let's go with that. Okay. Adam, anyone in Supervisor Chavez, anybody in San Jose like to comment? Adam, anybody in the queue?
Right now, I do not have anyone who has raised a hand.
Anybody in the room? Seeing none. Thank you for that information. They're now moving to the final section of this board agenda, which is public comments. This is an opportunity for anyone to comment on any issue, even if it was not agendized by this board. Do we have anyone, Adam?
On Zoom, I do have one person on who has raised a hand. That would be Colin Ford. Colin?
Hi, good afternoon. Thank you. My name's Colin Ford. I'm the Policy Associate at Fresh Lifelines for Youth, FLY for short. First of all, we at FLY are very grateful for the continued support of violence intervention and prevention work in our communities. We're proud to be recommended for CalVIP funding and appreciate the board approving items C and D today, which will allow FLY to continue to contribute to this vital work. I'm joining to comment today as we're also challenged with figuring out how to adapt to the recent spike in inflation and wanted to raise that issue again. Specifically, how much inflation has risen since submitting our application in February. We anticipate this spike will affect our ability to operate our programs at scale and our ability to hire and retain talent. We're committed to working through these challenges, but one decision that would be of great help is to allow those recommended for funding to resubmit their budget during the contracting process with a modest increase of 8% to adjust for inflation. We know these challenges aren't unique to us. We've heard similar challenges from other nonprofits being recommended for funding, others who have an equal commitment to continuing to do this important work at the scale that's necessary. So thanks for your consideration of this recommendation. We're also open to other solutions that address these needs so that we can have the biggest impact in our communities as possible. Thanks for your time.
Thank you. And just a brief comment on the inflationary issues that we've heard a number of times during this meeting. This is a competitive process. It's very difficult to accommodate this in the aftermath of grant awards. Not to say that it's not something we won't discuss and consider. We really hear this across the board in our operations right now in terms of any construction that's ongoing and in various other programs that we're privileged to give grant money to. So while we empathize, I don't have a solution. You're not being ignored, though. Let me put it that way. Anybody in the room?
I do have one more on
No,
Zoom.
you had your chance, Adam. No, okay, one more. Thank you. And close the queue, please.
Okay, the last one will be Nancy Juarez.
Hello, everyone. This is Nancy Juarez, she, her pronouns with the Center on Juvenile and Criminal Justice based in San Francisco. So today, staff is recommending that Barry J remain suitable for the 2018-20 cycle. When this issue of unsuitability was first raised, those familiar with the conditions in LA and the DOJ settlement from January 2021 raised serious concerns about the absence of many more regulation violations publicly documented in the DOJ lawsuit. And at this point, moving forward, we implore the BSCC and staff to pay special attention to all of the violations listed in the DOJ settlement. We also ask staff to assess what improvements can be made in inspections to ensure that key violations aren't missed during this cycle. Thank you.
Thank you.
That's all for public
Okay,
comment.
and we see, I don't see anybody in the room. And until we meet again, we will adjourn this meeting and see you sometime at the end of July. Thank you all.